Most people watching the Hantavirus news right now are thinking the same thing. A cruise ship somewhere in the Atlantic Ocean, Argentina. A virus most Americans have never heard of. Passengers in 6 countries, 3 dead. It sounds serious, but it sounds far away. That is exactly the assumption that gets families into trouble every single time an outbreak moves from a headline into a hospital near them. Here is what is actually happening right now, this week, as you watch this video. Just days ago, the World Health Organization confirmed an outbreak of the Andes strain of Hantavirus on the Dutch cruise ship MV Hondius. Within days of the first confirmed case, infected or potentially exposed passengers had returned to 6 countries across 3 continents. Health authorities in Georgia, Arizona, California, Texas, Virginia, and New Jersey are already monitoring residents who may have been exposed during air travel. Some of those people are in your state. Some of them took connecting flights through your airport. The virus has not reached your city. But the outbreak window, the period between first confirmed spread and full government response, is open right now. The families who understand what that window means are the ones who use it. That is what this video is about. The 15 steps we are going to cover are not for when things get worse. They are for this week, while stores are still stocked, while shipping is still normal, while you can still make decisions without competing with a panicked population for the same supplies. One of the steps on this list is not what most people expect. It has nothing to do with masks or food or water. It is the step that disaster psychology research consistently identifies as the single greatest predictor of household survival in a prolonged crisis. We will get to that. The pattern we are watching right now with Hantavirus is not new. It is the same pattern that has repeated itself across every major outbreak in the modern era. The families who recognized it early always came out the other side in a fundamentally different position than the families who waited for official guidance. In May of 1993, a young Navajo man and woman living near Gallup, New Mexico, died within days of each other from a mysterious respiratory illness. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention launched an emergency investigation. Scientists were baffled. The Navajo elders were not. Their oral tradition described nearly identical mass illness events in 1918, 1933, and 1934, each one tied to the same pattern: heavy rainfall, an explosion in the local mouse population, and then disease. The elders knew what to do when they saw the pattern emerge. They adjusted their food storage. They avoided certain enclosed spaces. They modified their behavior before the disease arrived, not after it. Western science needed 30 years and a full laboratory investigation to confirm what the Navajo had encoded in oral tradition across generations. What investigators found in 1993 was that the El Nino weather pattern of 1992 and 1993 had produced unusually heavy rainfall across the Four Corners region of Arizona, Colorado, and New Mexico. That rainfall caused a 10-fold increase in the deer mouse population. More mice meant more contact between rodents and humans. The result was 33 confirmed cases of a previously unknown disease, Hantavirus pulmonary syndrome, with a case fatality rate above 50%. More than half of the people who contracted it died. The lesson from 1993 is not about Hantavirus specifically. It is about the outbreak window. The families and communities that had systems in place before the disease arrived, food reserves, behavioral protocols, and awareness of early warning signals, were the ones who navigated that window without becoming part of the statistics. The families who waited for official guidance found themselves waiting in lines, competing for scarce resources, and making decisions under panic rather than preparation. We saw the identical pattern in 2020. The families who stocked 2 weeks of supplies in February, before the first lockdown announcement, avoided the scenes at the grocery stores in March. The families who waited for the official signal found empty shelves. The outbreak window is always there. It is always short, and it always rewards the people who move through it with intention. The Andes strain of hantavirus, now confirmed on the MV Hondius, is worth understanding in specific terms, because several of its characteristics are what make this particular outbreak more notable than previous hantavirus events. Most hantavirus strains spread only through contact with infected rodents, their urine, droppings, or saliva. The Andes strain is the only hantavirus in the world documented to spread from person to person. That spread is rare, and it requires close and prolonged contact, but it has now been confirmed in the context of a closed environment with 147 people aboard a ship in the Atlantic Ocean. At the time of this recording, 8 suspected or confirmed cases have been identified, and 3 people have died. Patients are hospitalized in South Africa, the Netherlands, Germany, St. Helena, Spain, and Switzerland. The incubation period for the Andes virus runs from 4 to 42 days. This means that someone who was exposed on the ship in early April could still be developing symptoms today, weeks after disembarking and returning home. There is no vaccine. There is no antiviral treatment. The only intervention that makes a meaningful difference is supportive care started early, and in severe cases, a specialized procedure called extracorporeal membrane oxygenation, ECMO, which can improve survival from 38% to approximately 80% when started before the critical phase of the disease. ECMO is only available at major medical centers. The window for it to be effective is narrow. This is why the steps in this video matter, not because hantavirus is certain to become a pandemic, but because the time to act is always before a situation requires you to. Now let us get to what you actually came here for. The 15 steps every family needs to take this week. These are organized into 3 categories: water and food security, medical preparedness, and communication and isolation planning. The goal is 14 days of household autonomy, 14 days during which your family does not depend on grocery stores, pharmacies, or government guidance that historically arrives after the outbreak window has already closed. The first step is water. Store a minimum of 14 days of drinking water at 1 gallon per person per day. For a family of 4, that is 56 gallons. The most efficient way to achieve this immediately is a water bob bladder bag, which fits inside a standard bathtub and holds up to 100 gallons of tap water. It costs around $30 and takes 10 minutes to fill. Once municipal water pressure drops or contamination becomes a concern, that option closes, so fill it before you need it. Alongside the bathtub reserve, store commercially sealed water jugs in a cool, dark location. Rotate them annually. Water is the item that runs out first in every disruption scenario, and it is the item most people assume will always be available from the tap. The second step is a water purification backup. Even with a stored reserve, having a secondary purification method is essential. A quality gravity filter like the Berkey system handles a wide range of contaminants. Purification tablets, specifically sodium dichloroisocyanurate tablets available at outdoor supply stores, are compact and reliable for emergency use. Plain unscented household bleach at 6 to 8.25% sodium hypochlorite, used at 8 drops per gallon, followed by a 30-minute wait, is the official emergency water disinfection protocol from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. These items are not redundant purchases. They are layers of a system that works even when one layer fails. The third step is food for 14 days. The target is calorie-dense, shelf-stable food that requires minimal preparation and no refrigeration. Choose white rice, dried beans, oats, pasta, canned proteins, and hard candy for a caloric reserve and for morale. Store everything in airtight containers. Use Mylar bags sealed inside food-grade plastic buckets for dry goods, and keep original sealed cans for everything else. Cardboard and paper packaging is not food storage. It is an invitation to rodents. A mouse can chew through a paper bag of rice in under an hour. Transfer everything to hard containers before it goes into storage. The fourth step is a manual can opener. This is the item that generates the most eye rolls and is the most consistently forgotten. In every power outage longer than 24 hours, and in every disruption scenario where normal routines collapse, the manual can opener is the item people search for and cannot find. Buy two. Put one in your storage area and put one in your kitchen drawer. This costs $3 and it takes 30 seconds. The fifth step is food rotation. A static stockpile is a stockpile with expiration dates you are not tracking. The system is simple. First in, first out. When you buy new cans or packages, they go to the back. The oldest items come to the front and get used in your regular cooking. Your emergency food supply stays fresh because it is always rotating. This is the difference between a preparedness system and a pile of cans in a corner. The sixth step is N95 masks. Not surgical masks, not cloth masks. N95 respirators or higher filter. At least 95% of airborne particles at the sizes relevant for viral transmission. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention recommends N95 or higher for healthcare workers treating suspected hantavirus cases. For household preparedness, store a minimum of 30 masks per person. They have a shelf life of approximately 5 years when kept sealed. At roughly $1 per mask in bulk, this is one of the highest value preparedness purchases available. Step 7. Nitrile disposable gloves. Keep at least 100 per household as a minimum. These gloves are essential for any cleaning scenario that may involve contamination, for basic medical care at home, and for handling potentially compromised food storage. Latex alternatives are acceptable, but nitrile is preferable because it is more resistant to puncture and to chemical exposure. The eighth step is a basic medical supply kit. This kit covers the gap between normal healthcare and a situation where accessing a hospital is delayed or inadvisable. Pack a digital thermometer, because fever is the first measurable indicator of hantavirus infection, and early detection is the only point at which medical intervention can make a meaningful difference. Include a pulse oximeter, which measures blood oxygen levels and can indicate respiratory compromise before it becomes critical. Include an adequate supply of fever reducers, antihistamines, electrolyte powder, and any prescription medications your household members require, and keep a minimum 30-day buffer. The ninth step is knowing where to go. Identify the nearest hospital with intensive care capacity and specifically with ECMO capability before you need that information. In a scenario where a family member develops severe respiratory symptoms, the difference between a community hospital without ECMO and a major medical center with it could be the difference between a 38% survival rate and an 80% survival rate. This information takes 10 minutes to find online today. It may take much longer to find when you need it urgently. The 10th step is rodent control and inspection of all storage spaces. Hantavirus is primarily a rodent-borne disease. The Andes strain's person-to-person transmission capability is rare and requires prolonged close contact. The far more common route of infection is through aerosolized particles from mouse urine, droppings, and saliva in enclosed spaces. If you have a garage, a basement, a shed, or any external storage space where you keep food or equipment, inspect it now for signs of rodent activity. Do not dry sweep or vacuum a space with rodent activity. Doing so aerosolizes particles into the air you breathe. Spray the area first with a bleach solution of 1 part bleach to 10 parts water. Wait 5 minutes, then wipe with damp paper towels. Dispose of those towels immediately in a sealed bag. Always wear an N95 mask and nitrile gloves during this process. Seal any openings larger than a 1/4 inch with steel wool or copper mesh, the only materials rodents cannot chew through. This is your rodent protocol. It is not optional for anyone storing food or equipment in enclosed spaces. The 11th step is a hand crank or battery-powered emergency radio. When power infrastructure fails, or when internet and cellular networks become overloaded, both of which have happened in every major domestic disruption of the last 15 years, a radio that operates independently of those networks becomes the only reliable source of emergency broadcasts, evacuation orders, and shelter-in-place instructions. A quality hand-crank emergency radio with National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration weather band capability costs between $20 and $40. The 12th step is a family communication plan. That means designating an out-of-region contact person, someone outside your immediate geographic area who will serve as the central communication point if local networks fail. It means agreed-upon meeting locations in case family members are separated. It means every member of your household, including children old enough to use a phone, knowing the plan before they need it. Communication plans fail not because people do not care, but because they were never written down and practiced before the situation required them. Step 13 is a household quarantine protocol. If a family member develops symptoms consistent with a respiratory illness during a period of active outbreak concern, the household needs a predetermined plan to manage the situation before it happens. Decide which room will be the isolation room. Decide how the bathroom will be shared, or whether it will be used exclusively by the symptomatic person. Decide who will have contact with the sick person and under what protective conditions. Define the threshold for seeking emergency medical care. These decisions, made in advance and under no pressure, are dramatically better than making the same choices in a state of fear with a sick family member in the next room. The 14th step is cash. In every major disruption since 2000, including power outages, hurricanes, and the early days of COVID, digital payment systems have experienced outages ranging from hours to days due to infrastructure failure or processing overload. Cash does not require a network. Store a reasonable amount in small bills in a secure location at home. This is not a significant investment. It is a practical redundancy that costs nothing beyond the decision to do it. The 15th step is a document folder. A waterproof or water-resistant folder containing physical copies of every document your household would need in an evacuation or extended disruption. Identification documents for every family member, insurance cards and policy numbers, a list of all prescription medications with dosages and prescribing physicians, emergency contact numbers written on paper rather than stored only in a phone, and the locations of your nearest medical facilities with intensive care capability. This folder goes in the same place every time. Everyone in the household knows where it is. In an evacuation scenario, it takes 10 seconds to grab. The alternative is leaving without it and spending the first 48 hours of a crisis reconstructing information you already had. Here is the dimension of outbreak preparedness that almost never appears on these lists, and it is the one that disaster psychology research identifies most consistently as the predictor of household outcomes in a prolonged disruption. Studies conducted after Hurricane Katrina, after the COVID lockdowns, and after the 2021 Texas freeze all reached the same conclusion. Households that had a written plan before the crisis made better decisions under stress, experienced fewer internal conflicts, recovered faster, and reported significantly lower levels of acute psychological distress than households that improvised. The physical supplies are half of preparedness. The other half is knowing what your household is going to do before the situation requires you to decide. The overlooked step is to write the plan down. Not in your head, on paper. Who is responsible for what? Where does the family go if the house is uninhabitable? What is the order of priorities if you have 30 minutes to leave? Who makes decisions if the primary decision maker is incapacitated? What does the family do on day 1, day 3, and day 7 of an extended disruption? A written plan, reviewed with every member of the household, laminated and stored in the document folder, is the single most underestimated investment in preparedness. A stockpile without a plan is logistics. A plan without a stockpile is a wish. Together, they are something that has a name in every tradition that has survived long enough to pass it down: readiness. Return to where we started. The MV Hantavirus is in the news. The Andes virus is in 6 countries. Health authorities in multiple American states are already monitoring potentially exposed passengers who have come home. The World Health Organization has assessed the global public health risk as low, and that assessment may be entirely correct. But low risk for the global population has never meant zero risk for the individual household that is not prepared. In 2020, low-risk assessments were accurate right up until the moment the shelves were empty. The Navajo elders did not wait for the disease to arrive before they adjusted their behavior. They watched the rainfall. They watched the mouse population. They acted when the signal was clear and the window was open. The 15 steps in this video cost less than $200 and 2 days of focused effort. They give your family 14 days of autonomy, 14 days during which you are not competing with a panicked population for water, masks, food, and medication that should already be in your home. The outbreak window stands open right now. The question is not whether your family is prepared. The question is how much of this window you still have left to become prepared. Start today. Pick one step. Just one. Buy the N95 masks or fill the water reserve or write the family plan on a piece of paper and put it somewhere everyone can find it. One step today is worth more than a perfect plan that begins tomorrow.